everyone. My name is Sherry Hollis, and I am so happy to be with you this evening. And I hope that you are having a great day. And I hope that you are in a good space in your life. And I hope that all of your dreams and your wishes and things are coming true for you in this new year. I hope that you made some fabulous resolutions that you plan for your life this coming year. And I wish you much, much success. A few days ago, I did part 1 of the relationship that you're having with yourself, and I told you that I would come back with part 2. And I'm just going to give you a few bits of details about tonight's podcast. I first want to give a disclaimer that we can only do what we know. And this is true of my parents and those around me. This is true of everyone. Because if we don't know better, we really can't do better. So this is why I said in one of my articles, and you can check it out on my blog, that we are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. So we may have an idea that we could do better, but because we don't have understanding, we don't have the right responses that would come from that understanding. So I just want to give you a backdrop of why I came up with this. I really saw a need to share this information because I know that this toxicity that we see in relationships and the traumas that we see in relationships is not just exclusive to me. It's a universal problem that I wanted to address so that we can get some clarity and some insights into a couple of things so that we could raise our awareness and move towards higher perspectives and better understandings of how things work. So, with that said, I would encourage you, if you can, very quickly, if you can grab a pen and a notebook or a pen and paper. There's a couple of things that I want to jot down and I want to highlight so that as I'm sharing things about myself, hopefully it'll raise your awareness of some things that you may be going through in your own life, or maybe you know someone who's going through something. Or maybe you're getting some insight about something that I'm hitting on, that a new perspective, a higher perspective that you didn't consider before. Because that's what this is about. These are series that I'm intending to do to help us to raise our awareness, so that we can begin to go out into the world, into our communities, being more empowered and enlightened with understanding on how to handle toxic, traumatic relationships and situations. I know all too well all about it. I was there, guys. I was there. I was stuck for 19 years. I'm telling you, 19 years. And it was really, really difficult. And what made it so difficult was that even in the midst of that time frame, I still found my own happiness outside of it, which was crazy. But I wasn't totally happy. But when I was alone with myself, I felt good with myself. But I was constantly searching, trying to remedy, trying to address, and trying to fix the things that were wrong in my life, trying to understand what was wrong, why it was wrong. So I was born with an inquisitive nature. I was born a seeker and an empath, like I told you before, which is a person who feels another's pain at a deep level as if it's their own pain. Anyway, looking back on 19 years, the 19 years that I was unhappily married, I wasn't in love, and it was so difficult because I felt so stuck. For 7 of those years, my son lived with us. He was 8 years old at the time, and he lived with us until he was 15 years old. Like I shared in part 1, he was abused by my ex-husband. At the time, I felt deceived because this man chased me for a whole year and made me believe that he had the right intentions for me and for my son. I later found out that he didn't. It got so bad, guys, that there were many times that I left him. And when I did, I would stay at my sister's house for 2 weeks, or I'll stay at my other sister's house even longer. My sister that lived in Brooklyn, she lived in a railroad apartment. She didn't have any room. It was her, her boyfriend, and her 3 sons. And you know how railroad apartments, I don't know if you are familiar with them, they are rooms that run adjacent to each other. There's no, they just run straight through, like a straight line. Like, whereas if I have my room here, the next room is right next to my room in front of me. The next room is in front of that room. And it all goes in a straight line, pretty much. Doesn't go off to the side or anything. So pretty much there was no privacy or anything. So I slept in my nephew's room with my 3 nephews. And my sister's room was directly next to that room. There were no doors or partitions or anything between it. And it wasn't the right environment. My sister, God bless her heart, she was there for me. She was there for me. She's the type of person that will give you anything. If she had a penny, if she had 2 cents, one of those pennies would be mine. Okay? Anything she had, she would give to me. Even when she didn't have anything, she would give. So I would stay with her for months at a time with my children. And it was hard. It was hard because it wasn't the right environment. It wasn't a nice neighborhood, so to speak. It wasn't how I was used to growing up. And the people that lived in the neighborhood were pretty much kind of like, I don't like to say it, but ghetto, pretty much. And I didn't want my children growing up like that. Even though my sister let me stay with her, I knew I couldn't stay long. Anyway, to make a long story short, from time to time, that's where I ended up. My sister's house. Or my other sister's house, just to visit, maybe stay a week or two. Just to get away from the drama. So it got so bad where months at a time I wouldn't sleep with my ex-husband. When he would touch me, I would cringe. Oh my God, I would cringe. I felt like I was going to throw up, guys. I'm telling you, I felt like I was going to throw up. It was so disgusting. And I just didn't know what to do about it. It was just so horrible. I mean, I was so disgusted by it that I constantly got yeast infections because I just didn't want to be touched by him. It was just so repulsive to me that my body was rejecting him and the situation. So that's why I said for a couple months at a time, and sometimes years at a time, I didn't even sleep with him. I slept in the living room, or I knew that he went to bed early at 9 o'clock, so I said, I'm going to stay up as long as I can till he falls asleep, so this way I don't have to be bothered. And that was the nature of our relationship. I wasn't in love with him. I didn't even like him. He just was not a nice person. All he cared about was his children. And he knew I was unhappy, but he was emotionally detached. He was aloof and cold and just not there, just mean, a mean person. So anyway, I stayed with him because I felt obligated. I felt as if I'd be punished by God if I walked away from my marriage. In many instances, I was encouraged by family and friends to stay. Others that I would talk to about it, they'd stay silent as I relayed what was happening. I remember one time telling my mom what was happening. And her response was, I hope it works out. And this was after I would tell her that, get out of there. I wanted to find some place to stay. I needed some place to stay. And we had a brownstone. I grew up in a brownstone. My parents still lived in a brownstone at the time. And basically, like I said, Mom said, I hope it works out. And that further confused me. I became even more confused by her response. I felt like I wasn't doing enough. In retrospect, as the years passed, I remember talking to family and friends, and this was way after I got out of the marriage, about that incident, about the marriage. And I remember them saying how, because they were involved in a religion, or they had certain beliefs, that they couldn't interfere with my marriage. And they couldn't really advise me to leave. So remember, we're talking about how the relationship that you have with yourself is the one that you have with everyone else. In my confusion, I told myself that if I figure this out, guys, I'm going to help everyone. This was how I felt. This is what I said to myself. So I spent many years studying, reading metaphysical books, books on spirituality, personal and self-development books. so that I could try to figure out what my issue was. What was the problem? Because I realized that I had some subconscious beliefs that were hiding in the background of my mind. But I had the wrong focus. My focus was on fixing things. I tried to fix things. I wanted to fix the ex-husband. So my focus was in the wrong place. So the question is, why was I allowing myself to stay in such an unhealthy situation? That's the question that we're raising. I believed that I was secondhand. It wasn't conscious that I believed this. It was on a subconscious level that I believed this. I felt like a victim. I didn't realize the root causes of my situation. So in many respects, I pardoned the toxic behavior. And I learned all too well that I learned that type of behavior from my dad. As a child, my dad was aloof. And my mom was abusive towards my brothers and sisters and I. So in the midst of being abused by my mom, maybe she hit me or smacked me, and I remember one occasion in particular where my mom smacked me really, really hard, and she did it for no reason. She had no reason to smack me. She was just angry with my dad, and whenever she was angry with my dad, she would take it out on us. So in the midst of being smacked, I remember my dad watching my mom do it. And I remember looking at my dad as if to say, what are you going to do? Are you going to help me? And all my dad said to me was, well, you know your mom, she grew up abused when she was a child. This is what he said to me. And it kind of disarmed me because I didn't know what to do when he said that. Because what it made me feel like was like, I didn't have a reason to complain. I didn't have a reason to even feel what I felt. It kind of invalidated and minimized my pain. It made me overlook my own feelings. I took on the pattern of ignoring my own pain. I minimized the abuse. I invalidated my own pain. I learned it from Dad. Dad told me Mom was abused. So that automatically made me feel like I didn't have a reason to still continue to feel my pain. What happened was it made me have a high tolerance for nonsense. I learned how to have a high tolerance for nonsense. I also grew up lacking boundaries. I was plagued with tremendous guilt when I was married. Like I told you, I wanted to walk away, but I felt like I was going to be punished. I felt like God was going to punish me. I was so stuck for so long, guys. I was so stuck. I was plagued with so much guilt, and I didn't even have a reason to feel guilty. I didn't do anything to feel guilty. There was nothing that I did. What I came to realize was that I was carrying not just my own stuff. It was a generational curse that was passed on to me by my parents. I was carrying the memory of the traumas in my body, in my mind, in my soul. It became part of my veins. It became part of my blood. It became part of my DNA. It was passed on by my parents. I always felt like there was something bigger than me going on. I felt like there was something bigger going on. I came to learn that my relationships in my marriage, even my relationships that I had with my ex-boyfriend, they were reflecting the shadow side of me. And this is where you might want to take notes. Carl Jung, who's a Swiss psychiatrist, he says that the shadow consists of those parts of ourselves that we choose to repress or hide and that we don't like. I'm going to explain that a bit further. Our shadow side are the parts of us, and I'm talking from a metaphysical standpoint, are the parts of us coming up to be healed. Our shadow side is the parts of us coming up to be healed. So they're seeking healing, these parts of us, these repressed parts of us, these parts of us that remain hidden deep within a subconscious mind. They're hidden.